Millions of people watched the Super Bowl halftime show featuring Bad Bunny. What interested me wasn't the performance as much as it was the reaction. Within minutes, headlines described it as a cultural flashpoint, historic, igniting intense debate online. One outlet called it a moment of identity tension. Another framed it as divisive across audiences. The same event with completely different interpretations. And many people assumed they're reacting to the music itself. But they weren't. They were reacting to what it meant. So in my last video, we looked at what happens when spiritual authority, someone positioned as morally and psychologically elevated, becomes associated with something deeply disturbing. So we explored how we project trust and moral weight onto public figures like Deepak Chopra, and how disillusionment happens when that projected authority fractures. Today I want to explore something related, but not projecting onto a person, but projection onto a cultural moment. And why even entertainment can stir such deep emotional reactions. Because when reactions feel bigger than the event, that's not usually about the event, it's about the mind, about perception. So the Super Bowl isn't just a game, it's a ritual. It's a shared cultural identity. It's a moment seen by millions. So when something appears on that stage, it doesn't just signal entertainment, it becomes symbolic. Humans don't react to events, we react to interpretation. If something fits our internal worldview, it feels validating. If it challenges that worldview, even slightly, it can trigger discomfort, not because the event is threatening, but because it disrupts expectation. So this is the psychological heart of many reactions. So in psychology, the term for this is cognitive dissonance, the tension we feel when reality doesn't match our beliefs or our expectations. So some headlines praised the show as a bold cultural moment, and others framed it as alienating traditional audiences. Those aren't musical critiques, they're identity statements. So when something seems to contradict our internal map of what culture should be, the nervous system reacts first before the rational mind does. So this is similar to what we saw in the Chopra situation. In that case, people projected hope or moral certainty onto a spiritual figure, and that projection fractures when the narrative changed. So here it's not a guru or a leader, it's a cultural moment that becomes a mirror of internal identity states. So in the previous video we talked about how people project moral authority and meaning onto public figures, and how destabilizing it can be when that authority is questioned. With cultural moments like this halftime show, we project in a different way. We project our sense of belonging, our assumptions about who we are, and our internal narratives about culture and identity. One person sees progress, another person sees disruption. One feels pride, another feels discomfort. The performance becomes a screen, a surface into which deeper psychological stories are projected. That's why people who otherwise might agree on most things have wildly different emotional responses to the same event. It's not really about the event, it's about what that activates inside the observer. And there's another layer. Most of us are living with chronically activated nervous systems. Politics, workload, news cycles, social media. One columnist described the reaction to the show as occurring within an already tense cultural climate. And that matters. When you're already on alert, ambiguity feels threatening. Stress reduces tolerance for nuance. It narrows perception, increases pattern seeking and defensive reactions. And social media accelerates that. Algorithms reward strong emotion. Calm rarely trends. So the reactions you see often feel louder than the reactions that are actually there. And this can create an illusion of polarization, even when much of the audience is just quietly observing instead of reacting loudly. So here's the more interesting question. What did you feel? Not what did you think, but what did you feel? Pride, discomfort, curiosity, defensiveness, something else? And was that reaction proportional to the event or connected to something deeper inside you? That's a psychological layer worth paying attention to, because self-awareness reduces reactivity. It creates space between stimulus and response, and that space is where clarity lives. Cultural movements move quickly. Identity conversations move even faster. Public figures and public rituals both carry symbolic weight, and emotional reactions are amplified constantly. And the work isn't to suppress your reaction, it's to observe it. Because when you understand your psychological response, you're no longer controlled by it. And just as in the last video when we explored projection onto authority figures, the pattern shows up again. We don't just react to what's happening, we react to what it means to us. If you found this useful, subscribe, and if you haven't seen my previous video on gurus, which adds important context to this conversation, I'll link it below. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.